Day family, this is Thaddeus, aka also known as Thatheisonebillion. I thank you once again for coming towards this channel. And of course, you're here to be able to see the reaction towards Paul Harvey and If I Were the Devil. If you never heard of this audio before, this is something that's definitely worth self-reflection. It's a short audio clip, but it gives a perspective from, I believe this video was taken around the 60s, the 1960s era, and to see how relevant it is to this day. This message is almost as if it were a text from the Bible, as in, even though it's been said or written so long ago, everything is such just so relevant to today. So that's what we're getting ready to get into. And so before we get ready to start, if you like what you're about to see, or of course, if you like what you do see, go ahead and like, subscribe, of course, if you want to see more content. But most importantly, I just want to let you know, especially if this is your third or more video and you haven't dropped a comment yet, I'm sorry, but we're going to have beef. Like, this is about starting over a billion conversations, not just conversations, but intellectual conversations amongst each other. Far often, too many times that we hop on social media and we're always entangling ourselves within a negative type of conversation. It's something that's talking about something that ain't good, etc. Not too many conversations is about actually helping each other and surrounding ourselves with a community of people who want more and will get more because we surround ourselves with those who we want to be around most of the time. So from that, it's ready to get into the reaction towards Mr. Paul Harvey. And let me go ahead and pop them up and we get straight into it.
If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
Wow. Normally I pause in between the videos, but just for this, I have to let it continuously. Mr. Paul Harvey just speak. For someone who listened to part of this before, but to truly hear the full extent is definitely something else. One thing that stuck out to me, well, there's many things I did, but one thing that really stuck out to me personally is when he mentioned about the metal detectors at the school and drugs, sniffing dogs. As in, this was a time you have to remember that when this was came out, which I believe it was 1965. I remember because it's somewhere near the year of Thunderbird when it came out. One of my favorites. Came out like 55, but etc. And this was a time where that wasn't a thing. It was just like, for example, how when all the stuff hit the fan in this world between 2020 and 2021, basically, no one would have ever thought about people wearing muzzles over their face as a norm. But look what happened. And it's the same thing of what she's talking about right now. That's the thing. Not only on the public school level, on the college level as well. Heck, even in like certain buildings. And that was just one of many things. The other thing he was talking about, as in, he said it in a better way, but he was mentioning the commonality of unclothing in public, as in to have marriage to be seen as old fashioned, and his older term of what he would say, as in people will prefer to swing instead, which you can infer what that mean, interpret. And just basically everything that he was saying, it applies towards today. No matter how you feel about it. For example, when he was talking about taking God out of a lot of different things, as anywhere from the school level, anywhere from on multiple levels, honestly. And it was just like, it was so much things that I was able to realize from that. Matter of fact, we're going to dissect this video right now and just talk about just certain portions, because this is something that just, man, like, I just want to let you know right now, if this is something that you like never heard before, this is something that's did a lot for you. Go ahead, subscribe, like, that's great. That definitely help with algorithms, etc. But especially comment on this topic. Like, just look at the ending right there. It says, in other words, if I were the devil, I just keep on doing what he's doing. How many of this that you done that how many of these words that he said applies to today? Like, honestly, let's break it down. We'll move back to the beginning. Right there.
If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness.
Makes
And I'd
sense.
have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree.
Sounds like the devil.
V. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States.
The land of the
I'd
free.
subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of the serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve. Do as you please.
So for those who didn't catch this, he said, with the wisdom of the serpent, I will whisper to you as I whisper to Eve. Do as you please. So this is going towards the reference towards Adam and Eve and when they ate the apple from the tree. For those who don't know, and of course, God told them not to eat the apple on the tree, but they had the snake, which was the devil, to say, "Do as you please." They ain't gonna really do nothing. You should be able to have what you want. And of course, you follow that story, you see how those things happen, how they got kicked out the Garden of Eden, etc. But right here, that's the reference. As in, with the wisdom of the serpent, I will whisper to you as I whisper to Eve. Do as you please. We're going to continue.
To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around.
Remember, this was made in 1965. as in the original audio. So it said, "To the young, I will whisper that the Bible is a myth, and I will convince them that a man created God instead of the other way around." Now, like I said, no matter how you feel about God, God is like gravity. No matter how you feel about him, whatever you believe it or not, you jump off a building, it's one thing that's most likely going to happen. You're going to fall. It isn't about what you even believe. It's just about it's what it is. As you didn't just come out for nothing. Do you understand how low your probability will be for you to pop out of nowhere? You have like a 1 in 500 millionth chance of like being born. And you telling me that just so perfectly you was born and have all your faculties to be able to have independent thinking, to be able to create through imagination, like the way that your body works, technically, it shouldn't even be able to work. Do you understand how many things has been put in place by laws, natural laws? Which, if you want to go into that, study the 7 natural laws. The law of rhythm, the law of repetition, things of that such. The law of polarity is for everything. There's an opposite to it. Everything is set up by laws, and it's such to in a degree that everything had to be made on purpose. We even have what's called a God gene. If you don't know what that is, look it up on YouTube because we're not going to talk about that right now for this clip. But a God gene, the God gene, is which every single person has, which is basically God's signature. So you look that up, look into it. Don't just watch one video, watch plenty, and also there's articles about it as well. Go ahead and get into that. But he said right here, I will convince them that man created God instead of the other way around.
I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is
square. So this is the other thing right here. No matter your perspective of this point, it said, I will confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. So it's self-explanatory. How many things not too long ago, which was considered bad, that is now is good? And that if you do that of what is good, it is square. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that it's really good. It ain't bad. It's just in the middle. Like once upon a time, it was a super bad thing or unethical or whatever for. To this day, it is to a certain extent, but it's not looked down upon like it used to be. As a for example, heavily smoking and drinking. Smoking, that was always been a regular thing, but heavily drinking, that was seen towards as a bad thing, especially if you were a certain type of person. And but now today, if you do that same thing, it's seen as good. The more that you do of it, the better that it is. You blend in with everyone else. But if you don't do it, oh, you're not seen as a good person, nor a bad. You're just seen as regular. Heck, some people would even look at you saying, "You're not doing this. What, you better than us?" or something like that. There's so many different paths and ways and scenarios you can come up with. That was just one of just many examples to be able to create some level of understanding.
square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington.
And I know I'm pausing on each and every level, but this is just a breakdown towards what Mr. Paul Harvey is saying. As he said, "In the old I will teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington." So, especially for those who definitely have God as a center really within their life, who have any type of belief within the Creator. How does this interpret to you? Our Father, which art in Washington. In my interpretation, is saying that we trust more in the government than we do our own Creator. We've been taught to, especially for those, which is if you're watching this, you've been through it more than likely. Unless you're top 1%, then that's a different story. Through the year of late 2019 on up to 2021, late 21, If anything doesn't happen, and if anything that you should realize is that people have so much faith within their government, which the government should always have some type of power in some sort, but only due towards the people allowing it. Because the government is supposed to be governed by its people. It's the reason why we have freedom of speech, and just in case freedom of speech don't work out, that's the reason why we had a Second Amendment. And it isn't just so you can have weapons. It's to be able to keep a tyrannical government in check. The power comes from you. But that power that comes from you is a reflection of someone that's higher. The power doesn't come from man. Our power is beyond man. If especially you see my other videos, you hear me a lot of times speaking of I'm not, I'm hand, I'm head, I'm body. This is my hand, this is my head, this is my body. It is not me, but it is of me. This is a reflection of who I am as in spirit. It's the same thing for you. It's not the other way around. Don't indulge just in the physical temporary pleasures. We have purposes on this earth, and it isn't just to be here. It isn't just to work. It isn't just to exist. We're here to be creative beings. We're here to be able to serve in God's purpose, which in our own is our fulfillment. And you don't know until you do it.
And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills.
And that's a powerful statement right here. He said, I peddle narcotics to whom I could. I sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. And I'll tranquilize the rest with pills. This is 2022, getting ready to be 2023 soon. How true, if you don't take anything else from this video, how true is this today? I peddle narcotics to whom I could. Every time you turn on the TV, for those who still watch TV, and if you don't have TV, go to the older people in your family, more than likely they have cable. But that's the way that they're able to tell a vision to older people. I peddle narcotics to whom I could. When you turn on that TV, on any news station, whatever, anytime a commercial come up, 9 out of 10, you're going to have a drug commercial pop up. You're going to have some older person playing with their grandkids, looking like they have a wonderful time. And it's going to be talking about on there, do you have problems breathing? Take this to be able to improve your breathing. The side effects may include a collapsed lung, cardiac arrest, erectile dysfunction, some stuff that don't make sense. Things that is not even curing anything. It's just subsiding that symptom, which a symptom is nothing but a body way of identifying it's a problem. It's just like if you have a computer board for a car and a fuse blows. A fuse is a car's way of letting you know that something is off. It's the same thing with your body. You won't get a symptom from something unless you have a problem from something. Suppressing the symptom isn't going to get rid of the problem. I can have a warning light come up on my dashboard, and I can actually go within the back of the board and take out the light bulb for it. And just because I don't see that warning light anymore doesn't mean the problem isn't still there. So literally the commercial will peddle narcotics to who it could. And I sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. We see plenty of that in today. Look at your music artists. Just one of many examples. And I tranquilize the rest with pills. Did you know it's probably different now, honestly, because of how many things have changed in this world. Last time I checked, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around there. Did you know that for those who are under the age, not under, over the age of 50, that is guaranteed that at least 3 out of 4 Americans are on some type of pharmaceutical drug. If it's Advil, if it's some type of penicillin, something. How are we the main producer of pharmaceutical drugs with a P, not with an F? That's the original way of medicine. But how are we we're the biggest basically producer of pharmaceutical drugs. And here we consume in America over 60% of our own drugs compared to the rest of the world that we ship out to. I just want you to think about that.
If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves.
And this is true again. I'm not going to keep on stopping like this, but I just wanted to make sure to break this down just to show you how much it is. This is just a 3-minute video of Paul Harvey, If I Were the Devil. But if you really break this down, that 3 minutes, it turns into an hour easy. And it's simply because it's so much that's condensed into one. He said, if I were the devil, I'll soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves. All of these happening today, especially with the families at war with themselves. That really started to take off at the 1970s with the war on drugs by Nixon, which we already know, if you don't, that the war on drugs wasn't really the war on drugs. The war on drugs was about especially breaking up the black families. And not just, of course, black families, but that was the main thing they were shooting after. Now it's everybody. They're not discriminating against nobody today. They're going against everybody. But especially at that point, that's when they start the war on families, because they knew in order to be able to break down, especially black people, that they had to attack the stronghold of the black people. And that was the black family. So, what better way than to pump in drugs, take away factory type of jobs, say that you need degrees instead of skills to be able to support your family, and give welfare to the women so they don't need the man. That's what they think anyway. Just because, if I'm just saying this right now, if you think a man is only good for just financial support, that just lets you know that you've been programmed, and that program needs to be changed, because that's not natural to think that way. A man has far much more value. But in the 1970s, this was when it was truly started, and it's the byproduct of what we have today. It used to be prior to 1970 that 1 out of 4 people that was born in a minority community, predominantly black, were out of wedlock, which means out of marriage. Now it's the complete opposite. Now, 3 out of 4, for every 4 people, three of them are out of wedlock. Something isn't right. That's all I'm saying. You got churches at war with themselves. How many fraudulent things have we been seeing with churches lately? Especially during when all the stuff hit the fan. We got to really see what churches were truly supported, supplied, and who they really stood for. If you really want to go into that, really just look towards where's the money coming from and who to support. If they think they're doing right or not, it is what it is. And nations at war with themselves. How much division do we have just simply between, for example, Republicans and Democrats? Like, why would you blindly follow one party simply because they're that party? It can go for Democrats and Republicans. You have people that's literally Democrats simply because they're Democrats and their family were Democrats and their grandpa was Democrats. Even though the Democratic Party used to be the Republican Party, but that's a whole different story by itself. It's just for you to think. Don't allow media to think for you. Think for yourself. Before you hop on your phone in the morning to check messages to see if your that want to be boo thing text you or anything like that. Take 10 to 15 minutes to yourself just to gather your thoughts. Drink you some water, wash your face, brush your teeth. Just honestly think. Not just think, but just allow yourself just to have your thoughts before you put anything else in it. Because the moment that you start putting other thoughts from other things in your mind, they're no longer your thoughts. It's just honestly you responding to what you think is your thoughts. But you've been doing it so much that you think it is.
Until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions just left.
And that's another one right here. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect the discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. See plenty of examples of those today. Just because you throw in a whole bunch of knowledge, information on children, is it going to make them successful and well? And that's so true today here in 2022. You having a degree like it would be in the 70s and 80s isn't like how it is today. Back then, it actually made sense. Today, unless you're going for major STEM, it really doesn't. Simply because of just it's just the intellect portion. And we far too much neglect the discipline of emotions. It's never about how your mind like it's not taught that the way that you configure your mind, the way that you think of yourself determines how everything else is going to be processed. If you think yourself as dumb, you've been told you ain't nothing, and you believe that, no matter how smart you truly actually are, because you have that paradigm of what you think you are, that's the way that you're going to think, and those are the results you're going to bear. It's really taught in the opposite, but the second part isn't even taught at all. This information right now, you're seeking from YouTube. Think about that. With all the information we got in the world, all the things that you think should be in school, we're learning all this information from YouTube. We have to go to basically a third party source just to find out things we didn't even know about our own history. Just food for thought.
Those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion.
And this is a big one. In his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and defy science. So this is something that I see of, and there's nothing wrong with bringing in psychology for an example or an understanding. So you should use psychology as an understanding to be able to know how to target a certain audience, how to speak to a certain audience. Psychologically, just to see how someone understands. But to use it as a replacement and to take something out of context from the Bible, that's not how things are supposed to be done. As in, I would substitute psychology for religion and defy science. And this is going to be on a whole other video, but it says and to defy science. You notice he says not add science, defy science. Wait a minute, but he's talking about religion. That defies science, right? No. Because when you realize who Taurus really God isn't a religion. God didn't create religion. God himself is a kingdom, and we are a part of his kingdom. And his kingdom is developed everything that we see around us. You're looking at this more like your phone, if not your phone, your computer, and if you them top of bougie people, you got it on your TV. Not hating on you. Every single thing you're looking at is made of energy. It came from thought. Thought of a non-physical reality to a physical reality. Everything come from a blueprint and then becomes a reality with physical application. But nothing I mean, like everything came from a thought, which is energy. If your thoughts were nothing, you wouldn't have thoughts. Your thoughts are energy. You literally put these thoughts out into the world, and with consistent repetition of those thoughts and physical action with belief, it becomes a physical reality. Who would have thought that your phone would have been what it is today if someone didn't think about it? It didn't come from just one thought. It came from a concept where we had a dang phone that we had to do this and that, to a brick phone, to a flip slide phone, to now a computer phone. Everything comes from energy. Nothing is ever at still. It's never still. Everything's never at rest. Everything vibrates. If you get a super microscope and you look at any physical object, it can be liquid too. It don't matter. But physical is a better example. You'll see that it's always moving, even if you're doing it ever so slightly. Nothing's created nor destroyed. That's one of the laws. What, from Isaac Newton, I think? Nothing's neither created nor destroyed. Everything just transmutes into a different form all the time. That's how things work. And when you realize that, you understand how close science and God really are. Because science is nothing but man's attempt of understanding towards what God creates and what he is. That's all that it is. It's a man's understanding of the world. That's what science is. That's all that it is. And what Albert Einstein said, your imagination is life preview to the oncoming attractions, something like that. So that's recognition right there that everything comes to the mind. We know this, but do we understand this? Have we applied it ourselves? How many things that you've created in your mind and made it into a physical reality? You don't got to develop a whole new invention, but it's just about seeing the things you want to see in your life. It's people here on this planet who created what they want, and they did it. What's the reason why we can't? Because we can. But it starts with your thought. It starts with your habits, your habitual habits. What are you doing every day to change it? It starts with the little actions.
And deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle.
And by the way, when he said the symbol of Christmas, an egg, I mean, it's symbol of Easter, an egg, and Christmas, a bottle. You already know where you're going with that. If not, eggs, when it comes towards Easter, Easter, what's the actual name? It's a goddess or something. It's Esther, something like that. You can drop down in the comments. This is why we have intellectual conversations. That has nothing to do with the resurrection of God. It actually has to do with some more, I would just say, for YouTube safety, promiscuous, wink wink type of actions towards the origin of even Easter itself and what the bunny represent in the egg. That has nothing to do with God. And for Christmas, uh, when it's supposed to be the birth of God, it has really nothing to do, because even though the Bible doesn't give a certain time frame towards when God was born, it for sure wasn't in December. But that's a whole different conversation.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. What'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing.
I'm gonna pause right there. So for this the end of Taurus, this reaction video. It's been wow, that was very long. 34 minutes. Heck, if you made it towards this far, man, go ahead and just subscribe already. Subscribe and comment, because this is just something that I intended for this to be really a short video, but because of the messages that this was giving off, I had to break it down. So you can just watch the first, honestly, 10 minutes of the video and get the first real reaction towards that. But for those like yourself who's watched the whole video through, for one, I commend you. But two, it's just to let you know how much of not just a message that this had contained within, but how much that it actually has relevance towards today. Everything that Paul Harvey said is truth today. None of it is just what it is. None of it is just nonsense. All of it, no matter what your perspective is, more than likely, if you against it to the most part, it's because you're participating in the benefits of it. Instead of marriage, swinging. Yeah, it feels good and stuff, and I have fun doing it. And so I don't want to do nothing that goes against my pleasure, a physical pleasure, things of that sort. Just an example. But it just to let you know towards where's the mindset towards the masses. You follow the masses, you're going to get what the mass resort is. I believe it's Matthew 7:14. And narrow is the gate, and broad is the path of mediocrity. And for those who follow the broad path, are basically asking for everything that's not really good. And for those who follow the narrow path, is to stand strong for God. Of course, that's not verbatim, but it's simple understanding. Like you don't even, you know how powerful that verse is. You don't even need to believe in God for that to make sense. Because if you're doing what everybody else does, you're gonna get what everybody else get. Where, for example, I'm a college student. I'm in college to get a certain degree to be able to earn a certain income from a particular type of work. Is that my end all be all? No. But this is something that you could say is following the masses, but I know the result. We all know the result of it. But if I stay at that certain point and never change, then I will stay on that path. But if I use what I'm getting, because the broad path, it has its perks, but everything should always take you back to the narrow. It's the broad freeways that take you all over the country, but it's the narrow roads that get to let you see the most beautiful parts, the mom and pops, that natural spring, a certain trail. It's the little things that makes the biggest differences. So from that, to end this video off, just like what you see in the background, active faith cancels fear. Active faith cancels fear. So if you have fear towards something, the best way to be able to get rid of the fear is to have active faith. Instead of fearing what could happen in the negative aspect, think about, how could this work for me? Yes, this thing could happen, but what happens if it were to work for me? Start thinking about if things could happen for me instead of against me. And I could pretty much guarantee things in your life will start to change. So from that, this is Thaddeus. Thank you once again for being here. If you liked our conversation today, and our goal to be able to, of course, inspire over 1 billion intellectual conversations within the comments, please comment, subscribe. You never know what's going to come from this. I plan to build a lot of great things from this, but it starts from people like me and yourself with positive intentions, and not just the intention, but the actions. Because intentions are one thing, but the action is a whole nother thing. This is about building up each other. This is about creating something that cannot be torn down. This is about becoming more than what we are, because we can become more than what we appear to be. Active faith cancels out fear. Have faith in yourself. And if you don't have faith in yourself, go to somebody who has faith in you. Because the fact that someone else believes in you, even when you don't believe in yourself, should give you enough courage and ability and agility, which you already have. It's already within to become what you truly desire to be. This is Thaddeus. That is 1 billion. I'll talk to y'all next time. Thanks for watching.